Hey guys, Trigger John coming at you with another Diablo Immortal video. Now today's video, sorry the camera is off for the video. I am currently traveling for work. I'm actually trying to wrap up a quick project right before this launch, so that way I can have plenty of time off to fully dive in and cover Diablo Immortal. Now today's video is going to be fully diving into the Crusader build, just like the other build guides that I've done so far on the channel. This one will really dive into the leveling skills of the Crusader, what you're going to want to look for, what you're going to pick, and at what point you want to transition your skills depending on your playstyle. So definitely stay tuned, make sure to subscribe and like if you enjoy this, and yeah, hope you guys enjoy the video. All right, so we are back at it again with the Crusader build guide this time. Now you will notice once again no camera, so unfortunately you don't get to see my wild hand gestures to go along with everything, but what you will be able to see is the difference in the skills as we go ahead and we talk about them and we build them up. So first things first, like the other guides, we're gonna go ahead and cover the primary attacks. Now these are the attacks you're going to want to be picking and really what you're going to be sustaining with and using the most with your Crusader build. Now first things first, the level 1 ability that you get at the very beginning is called Punish. It strike an enemy for damage and gain hardened sense, increasing your block chance by 30% for 2 seconds. It's going to be very hard or very useful and very hard to pass up on because you are increasing your block chance by 30% for 2 seconds. So that means you will have a better chance of actually resisting damage, which is very helpful, and you more than likely want to utilize this quite often. And yeah, it's going to be very helpful. Next skill is going to be Sacred Fire. Now this unlocks at level 34. Ignite the air with holy flames from your weapon, dealing damage to an enemy in 25% as much to all other enemies in front of you. So this is going to turn into a kind of like a linear AoE type ability, which is going to do a lot of damage, which is good. There's definitely nothing wrong with this ability, and it can be very used for like farming senses. Like say you wanted to speed farm in a campaign mode or something along those lines, Sacred Fire would be a ability that you could definitely do this with, because it's going to help you just blast, whereas Punish is going to help you kind of do quite a bit of damage as well as a little bit more sustain. Either way though, you're going to start out with Punish from the get-go because that is unfortunately it is the level 1 skill, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to say that one is good to go. So we're going to say Punish is your starting skill. So I'm going to drop down here and we're going to go ahead and place Punish in here for the library for the first skill, because that's going to be the primary we are using for a while. Now let's go ahead and let's talk about the next level 1 skill that is on the list here. You will notice that the second one is called Condemn. Let's go talk about Condemn. It has a 9-second cooldown, which is going to be similar to like the Demon Hunter's cooldowns. Build a massive explosion dealing damage to all nearby enemies after 3 seconds. Activate again to detonate early, but for less damage in a smaller radius. So this is going to be a really good skill for using with the group combat. Basically what you're going to see and what you're going to really utilize with this skill is you're going to be looking for some group play or some grouping, and then you're going to detonate this at once, and it'll do a little bit of damage. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that you want to always focus on doing this. You may want to actually let this play out and do the damage that's intended, because what you'll notice is if you detonate early, the smaller radius could actually affect the amount of overall damage you're doing, and if it doesn't clear the waves for you. All right, the next level 1 skill that we're going to talk about is going to be the Spinning Shield. Now these, once again, the reason why we're going through this so quickly is because these are your basic skills that you start out with anyways. You do get the 4 secondary skills with the 1 primary, so you do need to make sure that you are prioritizing your skills, and these start off the bat. So it doesn't really matter at what stage you're unlocking these, because you get them from the beginning and you will eventually phase out some of these skills. All right, so Spinning Shield. Spinning Shield is another level 1 ability. Cooldown is at 12 seconds, so bear that in mind. It's 3 seconds longer than the last skill we just talked about. Hurl a spinning shield, inflicting damage to all enemies in its path. The shield will return to you, pulling enemies in its path to you and dealing additional damage. Maximum 3 charges. Players going to be affected every 3 seconds. So in PvP this is going to be a little bit different, but the other thing to note here is the Crusader is one of those characters that has great mobility skills. So having an ability like this where it's spinning shield, you can actually go out there and you can bring enemies towards you. This is going to be super impactful for group play, for characters that really need, like, so for example, like the monk, which is a melee build, needs to be kind of close proximity before it does the AoE damage. It's going to be very helpful for gathering big hordes, especially working very, very well and pairing well with like a demon hunter. So spinning shield is a great starting ability, especially at this level 1. You will definitely use this quite often, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to leave that completely on there for this first start off here for this build. So we're going to say spinning shield here is definitely one that you're going to for sure keep, and that is because, well, you are going to utilize it. Next, the one we're going to talk about is going to be sweep attack. It is right below the spinning shield here. Note all these resources are available on the spreadsheet as well. That is linked in the description down below if you are ever curious and you want to reference this data and in a little slightly different format. Okay. Cooldown is 9 seconds for sweep attack. Sweep a mystical flail through enemies in front of you, dealing damage. Charging longer increases range and damage when fully charged. Sweep attack will also knock enemies away. However, the only problem with this is it's a good AoE ability. You're more likely just never going to fully charge this. It kind of requires you to press and hold and wait a while. It's ideally those type of abilities don't really play well together when you're trying to get a good synergistic gameplay, like because what you want to be able to do, right, is you want to be able to synergize all of these abilities and allow them to really take your play style from zero to hero, so to speak. So we're going to go ahead and say sweep attack, even though it's on there and listed, we're gonna have to take it, but we will list it, but more than likely this is going to be the one that goes away because it just doesn't play well so far with the punish and spinning shield mechanic that you already have from level 1. Now the reason why we're talking about these is because at level 8 you will get this falling sword ability, which will be the first ability that you will actually have to swap out something on the list. Okay, I think, did we talk about the condemn skill? I don't know that we talked about condemn yet. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about this one. Yeah, we talked about condemn already. I just did not list this one. Once again, we'll go ahead and list that on there, but this is going to be another one where I feel like it's going to get replaced pretty quickly moving through the record. The last one we have to talk about is going to be the shield glare. That's what we're on. So let's go with shield glare, and let's go ahead and talk about if you're going to be taking this at level 3, or if well, actually we'll be taking it at level 3. Let's see if you're going to replace it at level 8. Unleash a powerful attack that deals damage to all enemies in front of you and causes them to bleed for damage over 3 seconds, max 3 charges. Okay, so here's the thing. This is going to be a linear attack forward that is a 12-second cooldown, which isn't terrible because you will have a 9-second cooldown on your other ability, and spinning shield will also have a 12-second cooldown, so you can synergize those pretty quickly when you come in here and you do the burst first of the when you do the first burst of... Man, I really need to put these in order to make this a little easier to understand what buttons you're going to hit first here, guys. I apologize. When you do like punish, for example, and then you go into the spinning shield, this is what I'm talking about here. So you get the 12-second cooldown here. You're going to synergize with that, and then you're going to move into this shield glare. These two attacks are going to synergize very, very well. This 9-second condemn, you will probably use a little bit right from the beginning for the damage build up, but it's not necessarily that useful and synergizes that well with that shield glare. However, I do feel like shield glare is probably going to replace, honestly, instead of, you're going to probably keep sweep attack and you're going to replace that with condemn, because it's just not going to be as viable for what you're trying to do damage wise, in my opinion. And I could be very, very, very wrong, but for now we'll go ahead and we'll put in there shield glare because it is going to synergize super well. Okay, now we have gotten shield glare plugged in there, and then the last one we're going to talk about is this falling sword, because now you need to figure out if you're going to take this or if you're going to replace it in a skill. Impale your holy sword at a location where it deals damage over 5 seconds to all nearby enemies. Activate again to launch yourself into the heavens and come crashing down at the sword's location, dealing damage to all nearby enemies. This is going to essentially be a place the sword in a location, let it do a little bit of damage, and then time it properly so that way you turn this into like a movement skill. That's how this is going to proc. This is a 10-second cooldown, which is pretty good, and you can actually utilize this as a movement skill. Now the Crusader, like you guys know, is going to be a character that doesn't really need a whole lot of movement skill. skills, because you will have the horse unlocked, and that's going to be one of the best abilities that you really utilize on this character. However, when leveling, Falling Sword is going to be kind of helpful because you can use that as kind of like a movement ability. It's going to work very similar to like the Barbarian's Leap Slam type ability. So with that being said, we are going to take a Falling Sword because that is your moving ability, and I'm going to go ahead and we're going to replace this Condemn with Falling Sword at level 8. And with this being said, this is going to help you start to really build and get a good idea of how you are actually going to utilize your Crusader. Now at level 8, you've got a little bit of movement skill going. You have a combination that you're building with Shield Glare and with the Spinning Shield. Both of these are kind of synergizing well for you, and you're moving forward. The next ability that's going to really take off is going to be the Draw and Quarter. Now this ability is probably the best ability on the Crusader in my opinion, because it's a great movement skill. Mount a Celestial Warhorse for 6 seconds, dispelling all movement impairing effects, increasing your movement speed by 65%, and replacing your primary attack with a strike. Holy Chains will bind up to 8 nearby enemies. This is awesome. So this ability in itself is probably one of the best abilities the Crusader has. You proc your horse, you go and you do a lot of damage for 6 seconds. This can actually get buffed up depending on the amount of gear as well. So instead of the 16-second cooldown, you can utilize Drawn Quarter for a little bit longer, which then minimizes that gap on when and how you can't use it. So Drawn Quarter, when paired especially with this when paired with the Falling Sword, synergizes very, very well. These two act as like a movement skill, so you can use both of these together to really utilize a lot of forward progress, because right now what you're trying to do is you're trying to build up your overall movement and quickness and leveling to 60. So you're gonna use Punish, Spinning Shield, Sweep Attack, Falling Sword. Now I would say at this point, Sweep Attack goes bye-bye, and we put in Drawn Quarter. The reason why is because both Falling Sword and Drawn Quarter work well together. You'll be able to interchange those two to allow you to continuously move forward, because Falling Sword is a 10-second cooldown, Drawn Quarter is a 16-second cooldown, which then gets utilized for the 6 seconds. So at which point Falling Sword should be ready again for you to go ahead and proc Falling Sword, which then should allow the 10 seconds or so for Drawn Quarter to refresh, and rinse and repeat for constant movement skills. As well as, while you're doing this, the Spinning Shield and the Shield Glare are at 12 seconds. So then you can kind of get used to proccing these abilities together, because it's all about that synergy, because then you're going to be able to time those, because you're going to have a 10-second gap with 2 seconds in between, which will allow you to proc the Shield Glare and the Shield Charge at once. Then you can go into another movement ability and progress forward into the next mob. So let's go ahead and talk about that. So we've gotten Drawn Quarter done. We're down to here now, which is great. The next thing we're going to talk about is going to be the next skill, which is unlocks at level 20. Now, at this point, level 20, depending on where you're at in the game, you're going to be somewhere in the general area of doing just enough damage and getting just enough used to this, where it's going to be kind of okay to start getting in a good rhythm, so to speak. The Crusader is very nice and helps you a lot with trying to get into a good rhythm. Let me go ahead and move this over here so you guys can see this as well. Speaking of rhythms, right? And I'm gonna actually shorten this one down to SS for Spinning Shield here, but this should allow you to get in a good rhythm and placement with the Crusader. And then we can kind of talk about, okay, is Consecration, man, tongue twister today. You get on the road, I swear, and everything just gets a lot harder. So let's go ahead and talk about Consecration, and we're gonna see if this is going to be something that you're going to take. Now, the first thing to note here is that it is a 15-second cooldown. It's a consecrate the ground around you, dealing damage to all nearby enemies over 6 seconds. Abilities like these are kind of good because they're essentially dot damage dealers. They're damage over time AoEs. The problem with these is we're talking about a leveling guide from going from level 1 through level 60. So if you were to say stop and place a consecrated ground, you can do a consecrated ground and then do a Spinning Shield, which then allows them to return to you, and that does help because then you're kind of pulling them into the consecrated ground ability over here. However, that's going to make you actually have to stop moving forward, so you're going to lose forward progression. I feel like in leveling any character from 1 to 60, forward progression is probably going to be one of the best and most utilized things that you can really take full advantage of. So at this point, I think Consecration is going to go ahead and be skipped. However, when you get back to doing, you've already hit level 60, you're going to be revisiting this Consecration because it may follow the playstyle that you're very much used to at this point. Now, let's go ahead and let's talk about Judgment. This is a level 28 skill here. Judgment is going to be a skill that, once again, it's a very good ability. The problem is it's not going to be utilized that well, especially for leveling 1 through 60. Pass Judgment on all enemies in an area, dealing damage and slowing them by 50% for 3 seconds. The center of the area will explode after a short time, dealing damage to all enemies and stunning them for 3 seconds. What it's doing is essentially it's a big AoE control ability, essentially. So you can kind of stun and you can slow, and at which point you can also proc another ability, pull them into this whole circle, which then explodes. There's a lot of chain comboing that can really go on with Judgment, because it's not a bad ability. However, when trying to level from 1 through 60, once again, like we were just talking about, you're going to be having that slowing of your movement skill, which is not something you really want to have going on when you're trying to quickly level from 1 to 60. So we're going to say pass on the Judgment for right now, and we're going to keep moving forward here. So let's copy and paste this one down. So at this point now we're at the Holy Banner. What does the Holy Banner do? It's unlocked at level 38. So now we're getting pretty much past the center line. We've also unlocked this Sacred Fire primary ability, and that's unlocked to level 34. Honestly, it's going to be up to you in your playstyle if you've really gotten used to this Punish primary, because what's going to happen is you're not going to use this as much because you're going to be on your horse quite a bit. However, I would say at this point you're going to probably switch over to Sacred Fire just because you are leveling from 1 to 60. So this is going to be kind of a quicker process while doing stuff instead of trying to get right into the dungeons. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and I'm going to start off by just typing in the Sacred Fire because you're going to be switching abilities, and then let's go see, does this change what ability you take next with this level 38 Holy Banner, right? It is Holy Banner, right? Yep, Holy Banner. All right, so Holy Banner, it's a cooldown of 24 seconds, kind of long in comparison to what you are doing. Let's see what it does for you. Plant a Holy Banner lasting and all nearby enemies for 11.2 seconds. Okay, for almost half the duration. Increasing crit chance by 100%, but decreasing crit damage to 135. Critical chance over 100% will grant up to... Oh, wow. Okay, so this is an amazing ability. Now, this is going to be amazing for group play. As far as solo play, I don't know that you're going to be taking this unless you're bossing. If you're trying to boss, then yes, you're going to take Holy Banner. If you're really struggling, maybe you take Holy Banner and you go ahead and you get rid of one of these level 1 skills here. Like, for example, at this point, you could probably get rid of, say, Shield Glare would be okay to get rid of. At this point, if you really needed to, I would probably keep spinning shield, because at this point you've gotten really used to moving characters around on the field. But I'm going to say pass on Holy Banner for right now, and that's only because what we're going to be dealing with Holy Banner is mostly with group play versus the solo play, even though it will also affect your amount of crit as well. So if you are really struggling to clear the mobs and waves, maybe take out the Holy Banner and then replace something like Shield Glare and the lineup. All right, the next ability that we're going to talk about is going to be Shield Charge. So let's go see what Shield Charge is and see what it's going to be used for. All right, Shield Charge is a dash control effect. Okay, so we already have 2, so we've already got another 2 dash control effects, which is good. Now, do we want another one? Charge forward with your shield, pushing all enemies in your path and inflicting damage. Enemies colliding with the terrain will be stunned for 3 seconds. So essentially, if you were to dash or shield charge against someone near a rock, they would then collide with the rock, which would then cause them to be stunned for 3 seconds. So that is very powerful as far as crowd control goes. However, we are trying to move forward fast. Even though this could be used to move forward fast, it doesn't do a whole lot of damage, which is what you're really going to be looking for, right? Because to get XP to go from 1 to 60 takes quite a bit of time and requires a lot of damage and forward progression. Shield charge, unfortunately, even though it does allow for major progression, it does not really afford you a whole lot of luxury of dealing with the slowing down and taking and doing less damage. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pass on shield charge for right now, but this is gonna be an ability where, once again, it's gonna be all about your playstyle. You will probably come back and want to grab that ability for your Crusader, depending on if you're playing with a group or by solo. If you're playing in a group, this is probably going to be an ability that you're going to grab to go ahead and also work on stunning for, say, a wizard or demon hunter to come up the back and really do a lot more damage. All right, so the next ability we're going to talk about, because we only have 2 left, is going to be the Sacred Chain, level 44. Moving on here, Sacred Chain at level 44 is going to unlock the following ability. Sacred Chain, there it is. Throw holy chains that bounce between enemies, striking up to 6 targets and dealing damage to each. This chain stuns enemies for 8 seconds, but are dispelled by damage. Duration reduced to 3 seconds on players. Okay, this is a really good ability for crowd control. It's a 14-second cooldown, which is great. They can stun for 8 seconds, so it's only a 6-second cooldown technically. However, if they take any damage while stun locked, they are really just going to come right back. So it's kind of one of those, oh shit, I messed up, I need to get out of here abilities. I'm going to say you're going to go ahead and pass on this, because once again, this slows down your general playthrough. You've also been playing with almost all these same exact abilities since level 1, so you've gotten extremely comfortable with them moving forward. So at level 44, you're not going to want to change your playstyle completely. You're going to want to kind of keep this moving forward to keep your forward progression and really do all the damage that is possible. All right, last but not least, we have the Conjuration of Light ability. Let's go talk about it. This is the final ability that the Crusader gets. It is a 25.8 second cooldown, which is a little long, but it calls down a beam of holy light from the heavens, protecting you and all nearby enemies from damage immunity for 3 seconds. It's essentially, for a lot of people who play MMOs out there like WoW or say ESO or something like that, or even Final Fantasy 14, like Final Fantasy 14, the Gunbreaker has an ability that is almost identical to this, where it uses all the players' HP and makes them essentially invincible for like 3 seconds. I think it leaves them down like 100 HP or something, so they have to immediately be healed up. This is going to be kind of the same idea. It's going to call down a beam of light, holy light from the heavens, protecting you and your nearby allies from damage immunity for 3 seconds. This is going to be really good for group play. It's also going to be good for solo play. However, something to note is that level 50, unless you're getting one shot, you probably aren't going to be taking this. However, if you are getting one shot, what you can do, and what I would probably recommend, is that instead of taking all of these, because this is a 25.8 second cooldown, so this is not going to be a very reliable oh shit command to use just whenever you feel like it. You're going to have essentially half a minute in between each use, so if you're getting close to dying, this ability really is not going to honestly save you. It's going to pretty much, you're going to try to use this as a crutch, and what's going to happen is you're going to die more. However, if you really are struggling, what you can do is you can take this ability and you can pry it in with more than likely shield glare. And then what you would also maybe want to do is, because if you're really struggling that much to where you're thinking about going and using that, you're also going to want to probably do something like Holy Banner for you, which would probably be pretty good, honestly, for basically it gives you that buff, which may give you a little bit more damage. And even the other ability that you may think about grabbing, let's see if I can grab that here, is going back to this punish skill here, so that way you can increase your block chance. However, once again, you're going to lose a lot of DPS on that type of ability if you were to swap those out. So definitely keep that in mind. I'm going to definitely recommend that you go with something like this, just to get leveled up from 1 through 60. Once you hit level 60, the whole entire Crusader gameplay changes, and you will definitely be respeccing your gear and your gems for sure. And more than likely, you're going to lose at least 2 of these abilities from your bar. You're not going to use them when you're going into full-on dungeon mode. But once again, we're only talking about and specializing in leveling from level 1 through 60. Now, if you do have any questions below, please leave comments and whatnot below. I'd love to hear them, especially if you have more insight insight on what you would do in your situation. I have not actually played the Crusader in the game. However, when I get done with my Demon Hunter, because that's what I'm going to main, I do fully intend on playing the Crusader at some point in time. I'm very interested in that gameplay and that class because I feel like it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm always interested in fun builds, and the Crusader is definitely not going to disappoint when it comes to a very fun and fast build. The Crusader is going to pair extremely well with characters such as like the Demon Hunter or the Wizard, because the Crusader is going to have a lot of movement that can be used, as well as they're going to allow those characters to do massive amount of damage with the guaranteed crits and the crit damage as exceptions, because they are already going to have high crit rates. I hope this guide helps you out in making and deciding if you are going to play the Crusader and how you're going to use their skills to level up fast. And once again, please leave comments down below, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and I can't wait to see you guys later. Peace.